Hello, scholars. Go ahead and fill in the blank here in the sentence. I only wanted one thing from life. Do you want money, victory, a big house, world peace, more sleep? Whatever you want, you probably want to use a colon here. I only wanted one thing from life, colon, a cat. And hopefully that'll be the last cat reference in this video. Let's talk about the colon, which is a super important, super functional punctuation mark that I think it is very hard to write without. We've looked at the punctuation hierarchy, and we know that punctuation is a system of pauses, that we've got no pause, no punctuation. We can use a comma to show a short pause, a little mid-sentence pause. We've got long pauses, the period, and I could put other end marks there like the question mark or the exclamation point. Those are strong enough to stop full sentences, to separate independent clauses. And then we've got those middle marks, which can sit between independent clauses or full sentences, but can also sit between independent clauses and other sentence parts. Now, again, we're going to talk specifically about the colon, and the most important thing to think about the colon, perhaps, is that it is anticipatory. That means when you see one of these guys in the sentence, it's kind of like a little arrow that says, hey, something's coming up here, and what's coming up is going to explain or illustrate or complete what I just said. Or if you want to make that even simpler, you can think of a colon as like a little finger point in the sentence that says, there's more, and here's what it is. Let's take a look at some colon jobs. Okay, first thing, as a middle mark, colons are capable of joining two independent clauses. So take a look at this example. Janet told me what I've been longing to hear. That's a full sentence. We could put a period right at the end with complete independent clause, but instead we can go ahead and put that colon there, and the colon's like, and here's what it is, which sort of pushes us into that second half of the sentence. She was joining the circus and never coming back. First job, they can join two independent clauses. Again, and that second one is going to explain or complete somehow the first one. We can also take a partial sentence or even a single word, and we can use a colon to tack it onto an independent clause. Again, as long as we have that sense that, again, that finger point in the sentence, there's more, here's what it is. Johnny had one fear. And here's what it is. Grandma. Now, if you've learned anything about a colon, you've probably learned that colons can introduce lists, and certainly this is true. Take a look at this example. We only needed three things. Colon says, and here's what they are. Good weather, an understanding bank teller, and a faster getaway car. However, there's one thing I want to point out when we talk about colons introducing lists. We need to refine our bullet point here just a little bit. Compare these two sentences, if you will. The first one, we've got a little pause leading into that list. We only needed three things: good weather, an understanding bank teller, and a faster getaway car. And because we have that pause there, the colon works beautifully. Now take a look at the second sentence. We only needed good weather, an understanding bank teller, and a faster getaway car. The pause there is not natural. It doesn't make sense. And because it doesn't make sense, we do not want that colon there. In this case, what I want to do is just cross it out. That's one attempt to cross that out there. Think no pause, no punctuation. No pause, no colon. So let's refine that just a little. They can introduce a list if and only if there's a pause leading into the list. And let me clarify that just one more time. No pause, no colon. Or if you want to say that with a more reggae feel, you could say no colon, no pause. All right, now let's take a look at one more use here. The mayor's message was clear. And here's what it was. We need more ducks. In this case, I've got a full sentence, and then I'm leading into a quote. So with the full sentence, I can use a colon again to hook on a quote. And the colon basically says, and here's what he said, or and here's what the message was. So final use there, they can introduce a quote if there's a full sentence leading into the quote, and you have that sense of, and here's what they said. Let me guess what you're wondering. You're wondering what to do about capitalization in colons. Should you capitalize the first word after a colon? Well, it varies, and let's look at some examples. Let's say you've got a list like this. I needed the following: marshmallows, peanut butter, harissa, and a fearless taste tester. Pretty much all style guides agree that when you're starting a list, unless you've got a proper noun, like a name, you're going to use a lowercase letter. So with lists, don't capitalize. What about this case? Johnny's apology lacked sincerity. The flowers were wilted and the chocolates were cheap. I've essentially got two sentences in one here, right? So with that second part being basically its own sentence, should I capitalize? And the answer here depends kind of where you're from. If you're British, the answer would be no. But if you're American, the answer is go for it. In a case like this, the capitalization will consider it up to you. Again, different style guides may have different preferences, but your call. Now take a look at this case. I felt two great sorrows. First, my mother had left me. Second, she left behind a sink full of dirty dishes. You've got two sentences that follow that list, and those sentences kind of go together. Well, obviously, that second sentence needs to be capitalized because it's its own sentence. It's not hooked onto that initial opening. So you just want to make the two parts match. So if you're capitalizing here, you're going to make this match and definitely capitalize here. So in a case like this, the consensus is please go ahead and capitalize. As you see, again, there's a little flexibility with capitalization. Don't do it after a list. Do it if you've got a case like there where you've got multiple sentences following the colon, and many of them have to be capitalized because of their own sentences. Otherwise, again, use your best judgment. So let's sum up here. We know colons make a medium pause. We know they're anticipatory. They say, there's more, and here's what it is. We know they can join independent clauses. We know they can link a single word or partial sentence onto an independent clause. We know that they introduce a list if you've got a pause going into the list, and we know that the capitalization is somewhat up to you, but be logical when you do it. Now, with this in mind, let's do a couple of examples. What would you do in this sentence? I needed the following for my art installation: chocolate, kindling, and enough marshmallows to fill a swimming pool. Well, we've got a list here, and we've got a pause going into that list, right? So let's go ahead and turn this into a colon. And then let's go ahead and lowercase that word there. So that what we have looks like that. Beautiful. All right, how about this one? I needed a new sofa, a backpack for my cat, and another cat. Now, if we read that naturally, there's zero pause right there, which means there's zero reason for that colon. So let's just eliminate that little guy and make our sentence work without it. Okay, how about this sentence? I had finally found my life's purpose: to taste every variety of boxed cake mix on the grocery store shelves. We've definitely got that pause there. We've got that sense of, and here's what it is. I'd finally found my life's purpose, and here's what it is. So colon works beautifully there. Now, do we need to capitalize the two? Let's see if we've got a full independent clause here. To taste every variety of boxed cake mix on the grocery store shelves. We don't, and it would make more sense to keep that two lowercase. So let's add the colon. Let's call it good. If you consider the slow process of the development of punctuation, you realize that punctuation marks did not spring forth fully formed from the head of Zeus. It took a little tinkering, and it took some changes over time to decide exactly what these marks were going to mean and how they were going to be used. But let's have a little discussion of how, again, given our current way to use these marks, how the semicolon compares to the colon. Now, there are some cases where these two marks are, I don't want to say interchangeable, but where you could use either one in the same place in a sentence. You would just be giving a slightly different shade of meaning to the sentence depending on which mark you use. There are other cases, though, where one is clearly preferable to another. But let's compare. All right, the semicolon connects two sentences or two independent clauses that are related. It says these ideas go together here. And to me, it feels like a very neutral mark. So when I use a semicolon, I've got two ideas that go together, and I want to imply that there's a relationship. Now with the colon, I'm connecting two thoughts where the second explains or completes or summarizes the first. And the colon is anticipatory. It says, there's more. This is going to finish up what I just started explaining. Now, I can use both of them between two independent clauses. The semicolon, again, kind of like a period. The colon when you've got that sense of, and here's what it is. And I can use both of them between partial sentences. With a semicolon, that's generally going to be in lists, or if I've got a sentence that's just drowning in commas, I might need a semicolon. Okay, but a colon, I can certainly use it to tack on a word or a partial sentence. Again, if I've got that sense of, and here's what it is. As far as capitalization goes with a semicolon, the answer is pretty much a no. After a semicolon, don't capitalize unless you've got a name. With the colon, we can capitalize it if it makes sense to do so. So not in lists, but certainly if you've got a full sentence after that colon, or a couple of sentences after that colon that relate. So let's take some sentences. Would you put a colon or a semicolon here? His request was simple. More time. In this case, I can literally fill in the blank here with this colon and say, and here's what it is. And if you can say those words, that's a pretty clear indication that what you need there is a colon. His request is simple, and here's what it was. More time. How about this one? Cassandra always had a prophecy. However, her predictions were usually false. Well, in this case, could I put in that sort of, and here's what it is, punctuation mark? I think we're much better off going with a semicolon. Especially we've got that conjunctive adverb, the however, and howevers, they tend to like semicolons because what a conjunctive adverb says is, hey, I'm going to show you the relationship between these two things here. And again, if we want to just simply pull two ideas together, show a relationship, semicolon works well. That'd be the better choice here. How about this sentence? The students hope for two things, the chance to practice grammar and the chance to see Donnie Larson dance like a skink on top of the desks again. I think pretty clearly a colon is going to work better here. And we can actually fill in the words, the students hope for two things, and here's what they were. First, we'll study the material. After that, we'll blow off the test. Now this looks like a sequence, right? And we've got our little transitional phrase there. To me, these look like two sentences that kind of go together. There's not that sense of the second sentence is explaining the first. So in this case, I think we're definitely better off going with a semicolon. How about this sentence? I felt gloomy. It was only 4 o'clock, but the sky was already getting dark. Now, do we have two sentences that kind of go together here? Or do we have that sense of, and here's why? Well, this is a case where I think either punctuation mark will work. You just have a slightly different shade of meaning depending on which one you use. So let's say I go with a semicolon. Again, I'm saying I've got two related ideas here. I'm gloomy. It's after only 4 o'clock and the sky's already getting dark. Again, those ideas just kind of go together to make this sense of melancholy, perhaps. Now, I could, if I wanted, put a colon here. With a colon, I've got a different meaning. I felt gloomy, and here's why. It was only 4 o'clock, but the sky was already getting dark. So in this case, it's not that they're just related. It's that second sentence gives you the reason for the first sentence. Now, when you think about these punctuation marks and how they're used, I want you to think of them as being more tools in your writerly toolkit, more tools for creating meaning, for creating style, for creating effect. Learn them, learn the guidelines for using them, pay attention to how other writers use them, try them out yourself, and make some beautiful writing.